Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Plunkett. I'm the Director of Guidance here at Staples, and this is Teale Stoller, our College and Career Center Coordinator. It's our pleasure to welcome you to our College Admission Panel Night. Not only do we think you'll gain great insights here into the college search and selection process, but meet some of the wonderful people who are working on the other side of the desk and here to help and support your children through the process in whatever way that they can. This is a program that we look forward to each and every year, and I think you'll soon see why. So we want to thank the panelists for the distance that they've traveled and the time that they've given up to be here and provide this information. And it's our pleasure to welcome the following panelists here. We have Anne Fleming Brown from Union College. Marisa Kogan from Yale University. Kelly Sareault from the University of New Hampshire. Larry Alterman from Michigan State University. Peter Wilson from the University of Chicago. And Peter Foxen, University of Connecticut.
So each of our panelists will be covering a topic, and after they go through and cover all their topics, we're going to open it up to a question and answer session. This year, we're going to do your questions by text message. So if you have a question throughout the presentation, you guys can text Staples High 662 to the number 22333. It should also be on the handout that you received coming in the door. And then you can follow that with your question. And we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So with that, I guess I'll pass it over to Peter Foxen.
All right. Good evening again, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It's going to be a good night tonight. So my topic is finding and developing a list that helps you find the right fit in terms of a college or university that you're looking to attend. Fit is a very important word. It's something that we as admissions officers use when we're evaluating applicants, but it's also something that you as potential future college applicants and admittees, I guess, would want to consider. You know, there are so many thousands of different schools that you could possibly choose to apply to and attend, and all of these schools offer things that are a little bit different. Certainly there will be similarities. You'll find that your college list will reflect some of those similarities. You need to, I guess when you're developing this fit, you want to establish what's important to you. It can start happening now. It doesn't have to be something you establish during your senior year. You know, that's why this is a great night for you to start thinking about these things. Make sure that you're figuring out whether the location, geography, you know, what's important to you as it relates to how far away from home that you would like to go or how close to home you'd like to stay, the size of the school, the types of majors and programs that are offered. These are all things that you can start to compile pretty easily in a list, and they're all things that are important to you. You'll notice that I'll say that throughout this portion of the presentation, is that the fit is based on what is important to you as a student and you as a family. When it comes to students who are starting to compile this list, don't just add a school to the list only because X amount of people here in your school have also done that before. I know that's funny for me to say, you know, representing the University of Connecticut, because we receive a lot of applications from, you know, students from Staples High School, but at the same time, we want students to make sure that they are selecting any of our universities to their application and potentially looking to enroll, because we're providing things for you as a student, and it's not just because it's a popular school that you've heard a lot of people applying to. So make sure you keep that in mind. When it comes to the personal fit in terms of you enrolling there and having success as a student, we want to make sure that the major that you have, that you're interested in, is offered. Personally, there are a lot of activities that you're going to want to do. Make sure that the schools that you're applying to have those activities so you can keep doing those awesome things, or they have the ability for you to start those clubs or organizations that you want to join. When it comes to the financial fit, that's something that you can have a conversation about tonight on the car ride home. You know, talk to your parents or guardians about the financial fit of different institutions. I know sometimes students, that's a difficult conversation to bring up, but it's a lot easier to have that conversation now at this time in the process to kind of get an idea as to what schools might fit financially, as opposed to this time during your senior year when decisions have to be made and there isn't a lot of time to kind of reassess or reevaluate. So make sure that you're keeping all of these things in mind. But again, the one piece that I want you to note is that it's okay to venture out and be unique and find places that you really feel fit you. I was the first student from my high school to go to the college that I went to. And that was a really cool experience. Yeah, sure, it was maybe a little intimidating to start, but at the same time, students came after me and they had a great time. But again, it was somewhere that it was important to me, a place that I felt I fit best, it was the right fit for me. And that's, students, what your mindset should be as you're going throughout this entire process of collecting this group of schools that you're ultimately going to be applying to. You're going to hear a lot of information about some of the resources on campus and ways to see campus and what we're all looking for when we look at the application, but start off from the mindset of, does this school provide for me as a student? And then you can kind of go from there. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see that the weather we have in Chicago year-round has finally made it to Connecticut. It's true, it's 80 degrees and sunny year-round. My topic today will be, we're talking a little bit about what pieces of the application you'll be submitting to us and how we do our actual review process. So the first three things I think that are really important for you all to know. First and foremost, we have two different sort of vehicles or ways to apply to most colleges and universities. There are two consortium applications. One is the common application, the other is the coalition application. So two separate ways to apply to a lot of different institutions. I am from Connecticut. I understand you're all, a lot of you are overachievers just like me, and you think that by doing more, it's going to help you. You can't submit both for extra credit or double your chances of getting in. So pick one and with your counselor, and they'll help you figure out which application suits you best. The second is that at most schools, you are assigned an area admissions officer. So you will have someone that is assigned to Staples High School. So at the University of Chicago, that person is me, which means I visit Staples, I read your applications, I'm your point of contact in the office if you're planning a visit or have questions or concerns. And that typically applies at many of the schools that you'll be applying to. And the last piece is that we practice something called holistic admissions review. You've probably, for those of you that have visited schools before, you've heard this crazy made-up word that we use just to confuse you. And essentially, all it means is that we're not looking for one particular thing. We're not looking for a GPA, we're not looking for a specific test score, we're not looking for a certain extracurricular activity. We're looking at who you are as a person and what you might bring to our academic communities. So when we're looking at your applications and reviewing your applications, typically you are all being read at least one time, most of the time multiple times by admissions officers. I know a lot of you look at me and go, wow, that 21-year-old on stage is making the decision about my future. I was carded on the plane a couple weeks ago sitting in an exit row. You have to be 16. I did get free drinks the rest of the night, so we were good. So multiple people will be reviewing your application. When we're looking at your application, we're looking at your transcript from Staples. We want to make sure that you are going to be academically prepared to be on our campus. So looking at the courses you've chosen to take and the grades you've gotten in those classes. Every school will deal with your GPA in a different way. GPA is really somewhat of a useless piece of data for us because every school does it differently. You guys have this incredibly confusing, I need a PhD in math to figure out how to calculate your GPA. So we actually don't look at it as an evaluative measure. Some schools will recalculate your GPA, some just want to look at the grades you've gotten in their classes because we know that a place like Staples High School has very challenging courses, and so we're going to look right at the grades that you've gotten. One of the questions, I know there's some sophomores in the room, and I think as you're thinking about courses, and juniors, as you're thinking about the courses you're taking, every year, and I think everyone on this panel has probably gotten the question, do I take AP Physics and get a B, or do I take regular physics and get an A? And the answer is you take AP Physics and get an A, obviously. Now, the reason I say that is that your course decisions are not made in a vacuum. You have a curriculum that you're taking. You need to talk to your counselor about every class that you're taking, not just one in particular. For your different interests that you have, maybe you're applying to be an engineer at a certain school, you may need to have certain classes. So thinking about that curriculum you're taking, not burning yourself out. We do not want you showing up on our campus not able to do work because you took 7 AP classes in your senior year. We're going to look at your testing. Testing is one piece of the application. It is not the end-all, be-all. The SAT or the ACT, no school that I've ever heard of has a preference between either exam. Take it once, take it a second time. The third time, we just think you're crazy. So limit the amount of times you're taking it. Testing is a band, not a point. There isn't a particular spot where we say you must be at this level in order to be admitted to our institutions. The general rule of thumb with testing is it's always going to be more important than the admissions officers tell you it is, but less important than you think it is. We're going to look at your extracurriculars, how you're spending time outside of the classroom. You do not need to be president, captain, head, supreme dictator of every club and organization you're a part of. Do the activities you love. Don't do activities just because you think the people on this panel want to see them. We see right through that. If you do part-time work, you have family responsibilities, please tell us those things in your application. Finally, many of us, or all of us, I believe, are going to look at an essay that you produce for us. If anyone asks the question about essays, I'll have a longer answer later for you, but we want to make sure we get through the panel, but we want to get another sense of who you are. So we review all this information, we take notes on each of these sections when we're reading on the computer, and we review you in an admissions committee. So several people sitting in a room with an experienced senior admissions officer chairing that admissions committee. So our decisions are made with a group of people. It's not just one person ever making a decision. And when we're making these decisions, we make them based on your fit for our institution. Now, in places like the University of Chicago and many of the institutions here on stage, we are selective or highly selective institutions, which means we get more qualified applicants than we have places on our campus. So at a certain point, we're making some very difficult decisions. We're having to look at UChicago as a whole, we're having to look at our class as a whole, and make sure that we're creating an incredible environment for you as students to be in. So you probably have all heard this idea that you have to be a well-rounded student to get into one of our schools, and we really actually are looking to create a well-rounded class. So making sure we have the right number, or we have a balance of econ majors, biology majors, but social scientists and anthropologists, making sure we have people from 50 states, people from all over the world, different socioeconomic backgrounds, all of those types of things have to go into our decision-making process. So the best example I can give to you is last year, I got a call from the chair of our music department, and he said, "Listen, Peter, in the University of Chicago Symphony Orchestra, we have 15 trumpeters. This year, 10 of those trumpeters are graduating from the University of Chicago. If you would like to keep talking about our university orchestra, I need some trumpeters." So that afternoon, I called an admissions committee in my office, and I said, if you have trumpeters in your applicant pool, please bring them for a special admissions committee. It was a great year to be a trumpeter applying to the University of Chicago. This year, not such a great year to be a trumpeter applying. And it's not that we're not looking for, we're not admitting trumpeters, it's just that in this year it might not have been something that we needed. In certain years, we start new majors. We may need to have students from those areas. We need a football quarterback. Yes, we have sports at the University of Chicago. We may need artists or sculptors or actors or dancers or singers or more classicists. And these are all things that we have to think about as we're making these decisions. So not only are you going to be a good fit, but also thinking about this idea of creating a well-rounded class so your educational experience at our schools is the best that it can possibly be. And I'll leave you with one final sort of piece of advice as you move through the process. And after I talked about all of this, if you're not admitted to a highly selective or selective college or university, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your parents, but we'll talk about that later.
Good evening. I'm Larry from Michigan State University, and we're going to be talking a little bit about authenticity. And I'm just curious, we're going to have some participation here from the audience. Parents, you can watch. This will be participation from the students. Kind of gets you ready for the college process. So how many sophomores do we have here? Okay, how many juniors? Great. So students, what I want you to do is each time I mention an activity that you've been involved in, I'd like you to raise your hand. Anyone had a success anytime in life? This isn't that hard of a question, folks. Remember, we're all admissions people. I guarantee you everyone else is paying attention. Anyone ever had a failure? I didn't think that would happen at Staples, but okay. Anyone ever work in a job and get paid? Okay. Anyone ever volunteer? Okay. Anyone ever do research? Anyone ever play sports on an organized team or just for fun? Anyone been involved in music? In theater? By the way, music, let me just bridge back to music. Anyone play the trumpet? Theater. Anybody theater? Dance. Anyone ever raise money for a charity? Anyone ever been in a leadership position? Anyone teach somebody something? Anybody take care of someone? Anyone ever help someone? Nice. So you guys have all done a lot of things. Those are a lot of things you can tell. Yeah, I agree. Those are a lot of things that you can speak to in your application. Maybe in an essay. Maybe in an interview. In the college process. And when you think about some of these things that you've already said you've done, which, by the way, they're not even all the same. Even all of those of you who work probably don't all work at the same place. But the question you have to ask about each of these things is, what did you do? What did it mean to you? Are you passionate about it? Because I guarantee you in the college process, that's something that really comes out if you're passionate about it. What did you do that affected others? And what did you learn? This is about telling your story. And as we've established here, this is a group of students that have done a lot of different things. I saw a lot of people's hands go up. And by the way, if your hand didn't go up every time, that doesn't mean you have to go fill this list. It's about what you are passionate about. It is not about what somebody else is passionate about. And if you want to have the most authentic application, you will be filling it with information about what you are passionate about. Because guaranteed, if I'm reading an application, and I read a lot of applications, but the ones that always stand out are the ones where I feel it's really authentic. I'm really feeling that student's voice in what they've written about, what they said they've been involved in how much time they say they're involved in certain activities. And I cannot express strongly enough how important it is. Because ultimately, this entire process is about each of you individually. Because each of you are going to be the ones going to a school for 4 years. And so I really hope that you try to focus on what you care about and let that come through, and let your voice come through throughout your entire application, through any interview you may do. It's very easy if you stay true to yourself. Because literally sometimes I will call up a student, and anybody else, we can call up a student anytime who's applied, and I can ask you about anything on your application. And a lot of times it's just, I'm trying to understand things. And the easiest way for you to answer that is if all the way through, you've been the real you, not somebody else. Thanks. The wait.
Good evening. The question that I would like to address is arguably one of the most exciting parts of the college process, which is visiting campus, getting an idea of what a college or university looks like, as well as utilizing resources. So first and foremost, the school counseling staff that you hear are a fantastic resource for just about anything. All of us up here on the panel, as well as any other admissions representative at any other university, is really good at knowing a little bit about a lot of different things. So if you get nothing else out of what I have to say, it is to always ask questions. Pick up the phone, send us an email. There is no question that is too dumb to be asked, and we've probably heard something more ridiculous at some point anyways. So please feel free to ask questions. Another very, 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 very valuable resource is the websites that each of our colleges will run and manage. Most of us are responsible for running our own, whether it's admissions page or our own websites. There's a plethora of information there for you. Everything from all the classes you may take as a psychology major to the research that students are doing in our engineering department. All of that is available for you online. Thirdly, it's important that you ask questions of appropriate parties. It is awesome if you want to call me and ask me about what it's like to live in the residence hall. I'm an alumni of my university. I can very much speak to that experience that I had. But our housing and our residential life office are also more than happy to speak with prospective students. All you need to do is say to any office, I'm a prospective student and I'd like to know some information. They're going to gladly open their doors to help you along the way. So ask those questions, whether it's of your school counselor here, of an admissions counselor or another admissions staff member, or any department across the university or college you're looking at. It's also a really good opportunity to get to know what the fit is, as you mentioned before, of a college or university by visiting. Taking a campus tour is a really good place to start. People talk a lot about getting the feeling when they're on a campus that that's the right place for them. Don't get too hung up on that. If it doesn't happen for you right away, that's okay. This is a long process where you have the opportunity to find the right fit for you. Start with a campus tour. If that sparks your interest, if you want to get to know a little bit more about a college or university, see what other visit opportunities are available. Do they have academic departments do facility tours and specific information sessions? Can you shadow a student for a day? What do the admitted student days look like? What more information can you get from that resource? Take advantage, take a look on the website, of all the different types of ways you can find if a college or university is the right fit for you. Another question you're going to want to ask is about demonstrated interest. Every college and university is going to take a look at this differently. At the University of New Hampshire, we do not track interest, so it's not important. However, there may be some up here that do. But once again, ask that question. You're never going to know unless you ask. So take advantage of your school counselors here, as well as the admissions staff, websites, and other resources that are quite literally right on your fingertips with all these awesome smartphones we all have now. And find out what college or university is going to be the right fit and what the parts of the process are that are going to be important to you in your application. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marisa Kogan. I might have come the closest, perhaps, Peter. And I'm delighted to be here. I'm also, like Peter, the Connecticut representative for Staples. So many of you I may have met, or I might see you again soon. And certainly we're close enough that you're welcome always to visit us locally. But my specific topic is, and this is what it says, tips to best manage the experience from an organizational and emotional standpoint. Yes, Vicki. I actually read that as how to talk you off the ledge. I wasn't sure. And although I do think it's a very important piece of this whole process, but I would argue that it may be one that you are already working on right now, because I imagine for both parents, I'm actually curious, how many of you, this is your first time through this process? My goodness, and for those of you who have been through this before, so more that in this group, more who have not been through this, although I'm always curious, the ones who have, you still come to nights like this. which tells me two things. One, that either you want to know the latest and the greatest, or perhaps it is still stressful, or quite possibly your children are very different students, which I think goes to what they're saying about fit, because every student will have their own individual journey, and certainly every family will approach this process just a little bit differently. I will say that I recognize, by all means, especially as a parent myself, that this can be highly emotional and also very stressful. I don't like to use that word. But I love the nature of this question because it asks specifically the tips that you can help organize the process. And I do think there's a direct correlation to that the more organized that you are, the less emotional that it will be. And one thing for you to all recognize tonight, after it's hard for us to keep track of what the day is, although in admissions we certainly know it's May 2nd. That's a very significant day for us. But after a long day at work, for the parents, for you to join us here tonight, we know it's not easy, and certainly students with all that you have to do. But this is part of what I would argue as you already have a step in the right direction. You're here tonight to begin the process if you haven't already started it, but to gather more information and to learn new ideas as to how to organize this process for you specifically. And whether that means beginning conversations that are either very important that you didn't think about before, or planning your summer as you're thinking about visiting schools and taking tours, and maybe even just after a vacation in Florida, stopping by a local school there to gather more information of schools that are across the spectrum: big, small, private, public, faith-based, single gender. There are so many different varieties that schools come in that you might not even know what might be right for you. I will say, though, that sometimes people use lists or popularity contests or schools that they may have heard of or know about as the schools that they think would be right for them. But I would argue that one way that you can start to organize your own priorities and your set of rankings is to perhaps list schools that you either visit, have heard of, dream about, or know nothing about. And then indicate categories that are important to you, much like your parents might have when they bought their first home or when you're shopping for a car, whether it's the amount of natural light, where the house is located, the school district, the different components of what would make you ultimately happy or fit what you're looking for. And when you visit that specific school, whether you're Excel-oriented or you just go old school and draw a grid, you can put your own ranking perhaps on a scale of 1 to 10 of what you thought of that particular attribute of the school. And at the end of the day, you'll start to total up these columns, and start now, because you'll actually forget, and many of the schools will start to blend together. But then when you're going through, and by the time you're a senior, you can reorganize this list in terms of your own rankings as to which schools might stand out for what you're looking for. And it will amaze you, because I imagine some schools that you may not have heard of or are less known may fit more of the things that you're looking for the next 4 years. The more organized you are, and the more prepared you are in anything, whether it's an exam, an audition, a rehearsal, a job interview, the things that you have already experienced, the better the result. And I know you and parents have felt that way too. It's the difference between controllable stress and uncontrollable stress. This process will bring you both. There are aspects of this process that are controllable, and many of my colleagues have addressed those, and your guidance counselors will lead you through every step of the way. From the time you're a sophomore, whether it's test prep, planning out your activities, looking at your course selection, thinking about your type of personality, your own career goals, the things that you're interested in. Those things you can do, and then junior year, it becomes more intense. For those of you who are juniors, I don't envy your situation. I know May 7th through the 18th, you have exams for APs and everything else that's on your plate. But the things that you're doing every step of the way to prepare yourself, the more organized you are, you will be in a better spot. I do want to end with one thing, and I'm sure you've heard this a number of times, but when you currently are more prepared and you already have ways in which you relax, and this is actually for parents as well, because I do feel like this is a process that parents can often feel that they're as wrapped up in where their child goes to school, and it somewhat validates your role as well as your students where they end up. Whatever it is that you're doing, I want you to know that you're in the driver's seat in this process. If you are able to flip the script and think about it that way, that to have an opportunity to go to college, to have an education, to be able to pick of the amazing opportunities, the schools that you'll soon discover that are all across America, that you have that chance. You be in the driver's seat. Create lists of schools that you will fall in love with, that will like you back. It's like friends. Don't spend time tracing the schools that won't like you back necessarily, or maybe an impossible reach. That's something you can obviously aspire to, but when you develop that list of anywhere, well, in our days it was like 3, I've heard it's gotten up, I don't even want to know, but maybe 12 schools or so. Realistically, if you're applying, make sure every single one on that list is a school that you would be so happy at. Because I can guarantee you any school that might not accept you, or when that time comes, it is truly their loss. Think of all that you have to offer and know that it will be a benefit to the school that welcomes you to their campus. And ultimately, that's all that will matter. It's not necessarily where you go, but how you will contribute. And only when you find that school that you fall in love with will you feel at your best that you can make a difference. And lastly, for all of you, if you think of someone as far as the emotional component from this question, of someone you admire and think of who makes you happy and ultimately is happy in your life, whether it's a teacher, a rabbi, a priest, someone at the local place where you volunteer, or perhaps a boss. I can pretty much guarantee you that maybe half of you won't know where they went to school necessarily, but it's how they carry themselves and the integrity that they have and the values that they stand for and the contributions that they make. And at the end of the day, that's going to be the most important thing for you and your success for this whole college process.
To my lovely assistant, I'm going to sit here for a little bit.
Okay.
Then you can be ready. I'm Anne Fleming Brown. I am the Director of Admissions at beautiful Union College in downtown Schenectady, New York. It is 2 hours and 45 minutes from here. You should visit. I am also the parent of 2 children, one named Caroline Brown. I have a story about her, and one named Chris Brown. That was a mistake. And I have so many stories about him that I don't think we have time this evening. But I need your help. It's a bit different from what my colleague Larry's offered you. The answers to the questions are parents or students. Can you play? Oh, Vicky Capozzi, your school counselor, will play. Who plans the college trip? The answers are parents or students, and you give the answers. Ready? Who plans the college trip? That's lovely. Who picks which colleges you will visit? Who drives the car? Or students with active licenses? Who decides what the student should wear for the college visit? I just want to mention there is no consensus in this room. Who asks the questions in the group information session? Come on. Parents ask the questions in the group information session. Who should ask the questions in the group information session? Who asks the questions on the tour? Who should ask the questions on the tour? So parents, a small notepad, scribble a question, hand it to your child. Who should take notes about each college visit? Who should be completely silent in the car at the end of the visit? And I just want to tell you that is extremely difficult. And finally, who buys the lunch? One thing I want you to think about is giving yourself a little flexible time to visit college. And if there's anyone in this room who thinks you should not visit colleges and you should wait, you are wrong. Caroline Brown was in 7th grade. She had a bad day. She presented herself in the living room to my husband and myself, and she said, "I hate you. I want to go to college in Hawaii." Now, she did not finally go to college in Hawaii, but there are many colleges here in Connecticut or in Schenectady, New York, that you can visit and assess before you decide to go to a distant island. You should visit, just as you've heard, your beautiful state university that you all love, all your sporting teams. Yes? You should visit a small college. I know one. You should visit a mid-sized university. You should go on some tours and ask some questions. Now, there's a little problem with this, and that is sometimes parents have taken the day off. They have organized the trip. They have driven to the college. The student is not showing sufficient investment. Students, you pull into the parking lot at the college admissions office. You are only in the parking lot of the admissions building, and your child says, "I hate it. I'm not getting out." Now, someone recently said to me, "Do you think that is good?" And I said, "No. That child is not my child. I would force my child to go on the tour. But you have to talk about these things before you go. The parking lot of the admissions office? What did you see on your way in?" It's so important to take a look. Now, I'd like to return to Caroline, since Chris is so often the topic of my speeches, and say that Caroline and I were visiting Mount Holyoke College. Mount Holyoke College. This is a beautiful college. Mount Holyoke College, all women. She and I are in the group information session, and she raises her hand, and I feel pride. And Caroline Brown says, "At Barnard, do you give credit for advanced placement classes?" Where were we? We were at Mount Holyoke College. Now, here is a good place, first of all, for me to examine the tips of my shoes for the next 20 minutes. And then to recognize that my daughter likes 2 colleges, and they are Barnard and Mount Holyoke. And that she was comparing them right there and thinking about this. And I learned from that question more about her. And we did not discuss it for a year. Okay. So my real assignment, which you don't know, is to say the role of the student. Students, here's your role. Study and do well in school, okay? I don't hear the students. Prepare for your standardized tests in the way that is best for you. There are many ways. Your fabulous school counselors will tell you. Complete your own application all by yourself and write your own essay. You may wish to use the month of August. In August, the common application will become available, as will the coalition application. And if you spend 10 minutes a day, you can complete most of the parts. Please spend longer than 10 minutes on your essay. You need to talk to your parents and pick a time to discuss colleges because they want to talk about it at every single opportunity. So I heard one family who liked football, so you have to explain. Can you help me with this? They like football. So they do it on Sundays from noon until the game starts. Do you like that idea?
Discussing colleges? Likely not.
No. Okay, don't do it then. All right, so you have to find your own time. And of course, most of us communicate in families by group text. That's another opportunity. Parents, your role, I'll get to the really big role, is to learn about paying for college. I just finished. I look great. You can learn about financial aid by going to the College Board website, which is comprehensive, or going to the wonderful sessions you have here at school. You can check each college's net price calculator and find out how much it's going to cost you to go to that college. And you can visit financial aid offices because we are the salespeople for the college and they are like the IRS. One thing you have to think about, parents, is this. With Caroline as my theme today, she came into the living room. That's like, mission control for the Brown family. We're in the living room, and she has her standardized test scores. And she shows us her standardized test scores, and we say, "Oh, honey, you just did great." And then she left the room. She can't hear me anymore, and I said, "Our Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, just right, and she's ours." When your children bring their test scores to you, say something nice, even if it's only 0 and 0. So if it's 0 and 0, you might say, "You'll do better next time." Just try to say something nice. All right. Parents, do not fill in the application. You will be tempted to do this, not because you are bad, but because you have filled out thousands of camp applications and health forms. It is a familiar habit. You must break it now. Remind me of my children, they're little, they said to me, "Mom, they told us at school you're supposed to read to us." I said, "You know how to read, and I know how to read. Let's sit next to one another and read." This is the time to break that habit. Similarly, parents, you will be tempted to write your children's essay. In fact, my sister today asked me if I had ever written my children's essays, which I did not. All right, parents, what a nice opportunity for you to listen carefully and to hear those moments, like Caroline's moment of saying Barnard and Mount Holyoke. You also have sensational counselors here. You don't know how good you've got it. You need to talk to them about colleges and say, "I loved Union. Are there other colleges like Union?" And they will say, "There is nowhere quite like Union." You might say, "I love UConn. What other beautiful small state universities can I find?" It is very important for the students to keep their meetings with the counselor because the counselor's going to write a beautiful letter for this student here. And I have read for so many decades these beautiful letters from this school. It is completely worth it to share your heart with your counselor so that they can bring that into this, which they spend so much time on. Now, you ask the question, do you need an independent counselor? I say, are you rich? If you are rich, you may have an independent counselor. I know that right here at Staples High School, they have the answers to all the questions, but sometimes somebody needs a little extra hand-holding, and an independent counselor sometimes can provide that. One big piece of advice, an independent counselor should belong to professional associations just like we do. And those are called HECA, or IECA, or the National Association of College Admissions Counseling, all of which mean they're professionals. So take advantage of those opportunities. Students, can you believe that in 1 or 2 years you're going to be going to college? You are ready. It's so exciting. Parents, you get to spend the next several months, or even 2 years, supporting your son or daughter in this process. But Deb Slocum and I had dinner together, and we'd like to share, as the parents of 20-year-olds, you will continue parenting them past college. Get ready. During this time of the college process, parents need to make the space to allow your children to be both physically and emotionally healthy, and it is not always easy. There's lots of funny discouragement during this year. But your counselors are there to answer questions for you and to be supportive. And the thing that you don't know is that they're very excited to hear about your futures and what you do. So I wish you great luck. I thank Peter for being my lovely assistant, and we're ready for your questions.
Thank you so much again for our panelists. We really appreciate you being here. And like we said at the beginning, now we're going to go to a question and answer session. We've had a ton of questions come in, but for those of you who might have missed it, if you have a question, you can text it to us. You will text Staples High 662 to the number 22333. And then you can follow that with your question and we'll get them up here. So let's start with, do admissions departments review applications in the order they are received, resulting in an advantage to applying well in advance of the deadline?
So I'll start with that. UConn receives about 37 to 38,000 applications every year, and we do not read them in sequential order. We will review all of our applications in a certain period of time, typically between November and the mid part of February. But the answer is going to vary based on the different schools that you hear from. So speaking specifically about the University of Connecticut, as long as you apply before our application deadline, the odds of being admitted are exactly the same. That is not going to be the case everywhere. You might hear some different methods right after I'm done speaking, but that is an important notion to remember, is that you have to do your research, and it will depend based on the different institutions that you're applying to. Is it different anywhere else? No? Oh, okay. That's good. I lucked out.
I think it's good to be at least 2 weeks ahead of the deadline. Not 3 months, that doesn't matter at all, but 2 weeks gives you a nice amount of time in case you forget to push the send button.
I do have one variation of that. At the University of New Hampshire, we review applications in the order that they become complete, not that in the order that they were submitted. So if you submit your application in August, after spending more than 10 minutes on it, but we don't get any of the other supplemental information until February, we will not review your application until February. You will be put into the row of that. There is no difference in applications criteria. There is no advantage to being the first application or the last application I review. Simply just how we organize things at UNH.
So a few of you mentioned demonstrated interest, and we're going to combine a couple of questions that came in here. If you could talk a little bit more about what that means, how those of you who do track interest, how important the college visit is to either admit or deny a student in the application.
So actually at Michigan State, we do not measure interest, but one of the things that I've found is that students tend to do a better job on an application when they visit it. And I think the reason is because if somebody's visited a school and then they choose to apply, they're choosing to apply based on the fact that they visited and they're thinking, gee, this might really be one of the schools I may end up attending. And so I would strongly recommend, if you have the ability to visit a school, visit it. It doesn't mean you have to visit it, but if you do have that ability to do that, I would definitely do that. Every time you do that, it's important that you sign in. If you've signed up for a tour, that you actually sign in, because schools that do measure interest, they're tracking that you've shown up. We generally, schools that I know that track interest are looking at things like if you've emailed, if you followed up on phone calls. Not so much, though, we don't really track like how many times you Snapchat us or Facebook message us or things like that.
Union strongly recommends personal interviews. If you come to the campus and you have a tour and an information session and an interview, you've done enough. I love to hear from students, but I don't have to hear from you all the time. So think about it as the difference between being my friend and being a stalker. I truly enjoy hearing from students and what they have to say, but you should never, ever do it frequently. You should ask something specific or be in touch, but just be careful about that desire to just encourage me, because sometimes it would discourage me. But remember, the simple things, the things you know to do, to visit, to have an interview, to meet the representative from the college or university when they come here to visit Staples, those are some basics. Now, if you have a test in a class when the university representative is here, leave that person a note that says, I visited Michigan State, I loved it, I want to be a little Spartan.
We'll move on to our next question. If a student has a learning disability or mental health issue, is that something that should be discussed in the application?
Perhaps I could respond, since I had the emotional question. And maybe every college is a little different, and I'm actually surprised the way in which universities are approaching this subject these days, but I think it's becoming more and more prevalent just with perhaps the media or the culture of this process. But we do find a number of students, well, the lighter issue may be the learning disabilities, and I do think that that's just who a student is. It's the makeup of what makes them tick, it makes them amazing, and it's what they're dealing with now. So unless these colleges and every other college you may be considering has a different opinion, but I would say that for the learning disabled, if you have a disability, chances are you're already having accommodations made, or you have strategies in place to combat and deal with your situation. Those are things that are positive for us. It's never a negative. It's just it's how you function and how you work. All of our schools are equipped with amazing resources you would not believe. The number of students we admit that are dyslexic are mind-blowing. It's because students have already figured out ways that they excel using the strategies and the accommodations that they've been given. So I think that we're very lucky, our campuses, to have resources available for students in that particular situation, not to mention the faculty who already understand and will give those untimed tests or extensions for papers or any accommodation that's necessary. On the the other side of the question for the mental health and disclosing that in applications. I feel like a topic that's pretty heavy because I do think that it's not necessarily the college process, but perhaps peer pressure, high school, self-confidence, any teenage angst issue that you may be facing, we understand. And nothing is easy. We read the most heartbreaking stories in the applications when we receive them. There are times when I'm actually crying when I'm reading these essays. But it's to say that we understand situations that you've been faced with, that you're going through, whether it's with your family, with your own self, with your friends, with your peers, with whatever the situation may be. If it is something that's clinically diagnosed, if you've had a mental situation that you've seek counsel for, whether or not you disclose that, again, just like Larry said in his introduction, every student is unique, and who you are as a person, your authenticity, is what we respect. Those are the students that we want to bring to campus. And one thing that I am blown away by in our process specifically, and I would say maybe everyone up here would agree, is we'd rather see a student who may be struggling in one way or another emotionally, and that they've recognized it, they've found ways to cope, they have support, they've discussed it with their family, and they're not keeping it to themselves. They've already managed this aspect of that situation, rather than when they come to college and things may seem rosy and they've always excelled, but deep inside they're just broken. And then it falls apart when they come to our campus. So yes, I would recommend that you can certainly disclose things, and often your counselors will help you with that language and help you write that narrative. But don't be afraid that that would be something that would automatically dash your chances of admission, because we know that it's not easy these days, and we rather see that you're already developing ways to help yourself and be as successful as you can.
Thank you, Marisa. I know something that is probably stressful for a lot of the parents in the audience. Do colleges make decisions based on an applicant's financial position?
No, UConn doesn't. So, but again, that's speaking just to one university, but you'll hear, need blind as something. So when we're making our admissions decisions, we're need blind in that regard. We're going to review the student based on the merits of their application itself.
Chicago is the same way. Every school is going to be different. I think someone mentioned it earlier, but I can't emphasize, especially after the last 30 days of students making admissions decisions, how important it is for you to have a conversation tonight or this weekend about paying for college. I know it can be uncomfortable, students, parents. I know it's awkward. Do it in the car so no one can escape, as my parents always did to me. And I turned out okay, I think. But have those conversations now. It's better to have that before you get into your dream school, and then have your parents say, we can't afford it, or we're not going to be able to make it work.
At Michigan State University, we are need blind.
University of New Hampshire is need blind as well.
I think that just in general, the jargon that you can familiarize yourself with, are there universities that are need blind, meaning that that's not a factor when they review applications? There's a number of universities that say they're need aware or need sensitive, and there's other universities that will not make a statement on it at all, and so then it will be a factor. But that's certainly something you can inquire about, but fortunately, a lot of the schools that you're considering probably won't consider that as a factor, which is nice.
So Union is need aware. We give need-based financial aid to 60% of our students, but if we gave it to 65%, then we couldn't have a director of admissions. So we're staying with 60. But there are two other things that I want you to think about. One is that union meets your full need as described by the CSS profile form. These are other words and phrases you're going to learn. Ask the schools you visit if you are looking for financial aid, what is the average indebtedness of someone graduating with financial aid? Keep in mind that the indebtedness for your son or daughter should be below what their first year's salary would be in the world of work. So if, like Chris Brown has a little loan, he's fine. He's gonna make it. But we decided in our family that each child would take on some responsibility for his or her education. So that may be something you want to talk about. Federal loans are at a very low rate of interest and available to many of us. So again, learning the most about financial aid is very advantageous.
How important is it to apply early decision or early action? Is applying to a school for an early decision looked upon more favorably during the admissions process?
It's going to depend school by school. I know we will all tell you in the last 10 years, numbers for early applications have gone up at most of our institutions. You probably have heard certain schools are taking more than half of their class in the early rounds. Early can be a great way to show your interest, to show you're excited about a school, to show it's somewhere that you really want to go. You're also, potentially, it might be a little easier to stand out in a large pool, or in a smaller pool than it would be in regular decision. When you're thinking about these decisions, so at UChicago, we have early decision, early action, early decision 2, and regular decision because we think options are good, I guess. When you apply early decision to a school, you are getting down on one knee with a beautiful 24-carat diamond ring.
24 carats.
They pay.
Wow. That's a lot of
Oh boy,
Yeah,
I'm in trouble. Do you want to come be the director of admissions at UChicago?
Okay.
Just kidding. And you are proposing to our school. We have to make up our mind, takes a little while. If we say yes, we are taking that ring and putting it on our finger, and you and your family need to be ready to pay for a pretty expensive wedding. So not only should this be a decision I am 120% sure that I want to go to this school, you need to be 120% sure that it is going to be affordable for you. Early action, a little bit more like dating. You can apply to a couple. You might get asked out on some second dates in December. Then you're going to let them wine and dine you to figure out, just dine you. Please don't get in trouble in your senior year. And you're going to choose where to go by May 1st. Regular decision is a little bit more, you're applying to several different schools, all schools that you would like to go to if you're admitted, but it's a little bit more, you have a few more options out there. So if you have a place that you love, you have a place you know you want to go, the worst thing you can say is, I am going to apply early decision somewhere, especially on October 15th, to say something like that before the November 1st deadline. So if it is a place you really want to go and you're really excited about it, yes, it could increase your chances of getting into somewhere like the University of Chicago. But if you're not ready, or it's not the place you want to be, it could hurt your chances. So using your school counselor and talking to them about the best way to approach the process.
Or if you want another option and you want to consider Michigan State University in beautiful East Lansing, Michigan, we have rolling admissions.
Yes.
Our application opens in August. We start reading applications, and if you're in Staples High School, that's me who's reading your application. I can give you my card after we're done here today. We will start reading applications beginning of October. We will start giving answers to students by October 15th, and then you are a complete free agent. You have until May 1st to decide. And during that time, you'll learn about financial aid. You'll hopefully come and visit campus a second time. Maybe you'll visit a few other schools, the beautiful weather at the University of Chicago, or other schools, and you have that time to decide. And a lot of you are probably thinking, well, gee, how do I find out all this information? How do I find out the schools I'm interested in? Well, to me, two great places would be to either call the admissions office from those schools you're interested in, or to look at the website. I strongly advise not to use third-party sites because sometimes their information is not up to date. But this year, actually, our goal is to be, for the fall, the easiest school in America to apply to, because not only do we have our own application, not only will we be on Coalition, which we are already, but we're also going to be on the Common application. So it never could be easier to apply for Michigan State, if you're not applying to Union College,
Thanks, Larry.
than this year.
May I just say that, remember the two children, they both applied early decision. So Caroline applied early decision. She got in. We went to the Cheesecake Factory to celebrate. 3, 4 years later, so many years later, Chris applied early decision, and Chris was deferred. And it was very, very sad and gloomy in our house. So remember, there are options for decisions. You could be offered admission, you could have dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, or you could have to spend months thinking, why don't they like me? Why didn't they want me? On our national listservs for college admissions counseling, there's a new phrase. It's a little sad, but also quite charming. Instead of talking about students being denied or rejected, counselors are starting to say, this student was redirected. And in some ways, I like that, but early decision can have a favorable or an unfavorable result.
This is a couple-parter. We hear stories about how hard it is for Staples students to be accepted at a given university. Can you elaborate? How do you look at applications from Staples compared to other schools, and how do you compare applications from multiple Staples students in a given year or year over year?
I'll start with this one. So obviously we receive a fair number of applications from Staples at UConn, which is great because it really gives me an idea as to the extremely high quality of applicants we receive from this school. And I'm not just saying that. Students who are coming from Staples are well prepared. We were looking at your school profile before we came here, and the number of classes that you can take, honors or AP classes, ways to challenge yourself academically is tremendous. By living, just living here and coming to this high school, you have put yourself in a fantastic position with the resources available to you to be competitive for college admissions to any school that you would be looking to go to. So you should be very pleased with that. You should know that going into this process, is that you already are putting yourself, again, in that competitive position. When it comes to how we look at students, when we receive a high volume of applications from one particular school, we still do look at the students individually. I think that's important to note, is that no matter the volume that any school receives from any particular high school, we're not looking at every single application at the same time, from any one given school. We will look at the applicants individually. We will take that very holistic approach that you heard to reviewing the application for each individual student, because you all put a lot of time and effort and energy into these applications, and we want to try and reciprocate that for you as an individual. Again, like I said, it takes many months for us to read all of these applications over the course of the end of the fall and into the winter, because we want to make sure that we're getting to know the students as best we can through this application. And so, obviously this is a competitive high school environment, and we recognize that. But that, again, as far as we're concerned, is a positive thing, because it means that the students, the vast majority of the students who are applying from Staples High School are very, very well prepared for the challenges that face them at UConn and at other schools. And again, I think that sometimes the competition notion of it gets kind of ramped up to be a little bit more than it needs to be. Again, every student who's applying to the schools should be applying to a school that's right for you. That's what I led with, is finding that right fit. And so not being admitted to this school, but being admitted to this one, and feeling like it's a competition amongst all of you is not necessarily the way to approach it mentally. It's going to lead to some of those emotionally stressful conversations and feelings. But as far as we're concerned, again, the resources you have available to you here in this community are tremendous, and that is viewed very positively, and that's why we're here. That's why we're sitting here on this panel because we feel that this is a school that we all want students from, and that's a good thing to know going into the process.
So a good thing here is a good time to bring up two of my least favorite phrases in the college admissions process. When sentences begin with, "I heard that," or "my friend said," this school does not like Staples. I'm sure, parents, you have talked to other parents and they have said, insert school's name here does not like Staples, kids don't get in. That is not true. Universities don't pick high schools and hate them or dislike them. It could have just been there are years at U Chicago where we have schools that send us 30 applications and none of them are good fits. We have years where schools will send us 30 applications and we'll take 15 of them because they are great fits for our institution. So being careful you don't get caught up in this game of, I heard this, my friend said this. Just don't talk about it. Parents, don't talk about it with each other. You'll stress each other out. Students, you all want to be friends with each other when you graduate, so don't talk about college with each other. Parents, please fend off your nosy brother and sister, the nosy aunt and uncle, when they come for Thanksgiving in the fall. The only thing I will add, though, about your school's reputation, you are very lucky to have awesome counselors. You have a good reputation for that reason. You are lucky that you have had lots of classes of wonderful Staples High School students that have come and visited our campuses, that have applied to us, that have worked with all of us on stage. When you are visiting our campuses, you are not only representing yourself, but you're also representing Staples. So when you come in and sit in our main lobby, students, and you're back-talking your parents or being rude to them, please do that in the car before you show up on our campus. Get it out of your system, because those aren't the type of people that we want on our campus. So think about yourself not only as representing yourself, but also representing the community and helping those students that are younger than you by creating a positive impression when you show up and visit our campuses or interact with us in general.
As you work with your counselors, as you think about a list, think about sure bet schools or schools that are completely and truly in your wheelhouse. Chris Brown visited a school. We had a beautiful visit one day at a school. He did not go to that school, but I said, this school is a wonderful school. He liked it. He would probably get in here and he would have an incredible experience here. What a perfect sure bet. What a perfect school to have on your list. It's just a great idea. All of us know students who've gotten into 7 to 10 colleges, and all of us know students who got into 1. So those are the ones to be sure you're happy with, the ones which are most accessible. Did you want to say something?
We think we have one great last final question to wrap up the evening, so maybe each of you could take a moment to answer this one. What's the best piece of advice that you could give the students going through this process?
Did you want something to answer? Go.
I want to go first.
Start.
I'll start. So I think I mentioned some of it already, but don't talk about the process. I think Ann said earlier tonight, pick a night of the week. It can be a night you hate, and make that be the night you talk about college in your house. The rest of the time, don't talk about college. I know it's the lowest common denominator. It becomes the thing that is the most worrisome, it creates the most anxiety. Parents, you don't want your students running out the door to leave for college, nor do you want to tell them, just get on the plane and go. I don't even want to go with you, because this process can get a little bit stressful. So picking that one night of the week can really help make sure that the next year, 2 years goes very smoothly. I think being careful about sharing information with your friends. You do want to be friends when this year is over. I don't know why you share your GPAs or test scores with each other. You add 100 points to your SATs when you share them anyways. So don't share them because you're not telling the truth there. I think the best possible piece of advice, or one of the things when you are with your parents and you're talking to their friends and they're saying, what schools are you applying to? Answers like a couple places. What schools were you admitted to? A few places. You don't have to tell anybody where you're applying to school. So you can keep the process to yourself. Your parents are great at sort of obstructing that. But the best piece of advice I can give you when someone says, what grade are you in? If you say you're a sophomore, no one will ask you about college.
So in 2011, I was a senior in high school, and the only place I was willing to consider attending college was the University of New Hampshire.
Excellent choice.
It wasn't a bad choice, turns out. I submitted my application. I am very fortunate to have parents who met and actually got engaged on university property. Lots of wildcat blood in my family. The University of New Hampshire then denied my application for admission. At 17, I was absolutely distraught. My father's shoulder is probably still drying out from the tears. I just turned 25 a few weeks ago. And that was hard. That was not the greatest moment, I would say, in high school for me, but it was okay. And I realized that there is somebody in admissions office who did me a favor. I was not academically prepared to be a baccalaureate student at the University of New Hampshire. Tough junior year, the whole 9 yards. So I worked my butt off to get an associate's degree and then transferred to the University of New Hampshire, where I was able to obtain a bachelor's in 2 years. If I had taken a deep breath, maybe asked a few more questions, been realistic about the type of student I was, listened to my parents, I would have had an easier way through this process. I encourage all of you to keep in mind what's meant to happen is going to happen. If I had attended the University of New Hampshire at 18 years old in the fall of 2011, I would not be sitting here tonight, and I probably would have flunked out. But I needed that learning experience to get where I am today and get an associate's and a bachelor's degree out of it. So take a deep breath, remember what's going to happen is going to happen, and ask a ton of questions so that you have an easier process than I had.
Not looking for this. Yeah, I'll sign. Yeah. You want the rest? There's nothing else to say. What a beautiful sharing. Students, you are going to be asked 1,000 times what you'd like to study. Please make something up. You exhaust me. I'm undecided. I don't really know what I want to do. I might like fashion. I just make it up. If it's 2 things, I love that. Please make it up at home. Make it fun. Just create it. Say, I'm thinking of journalism. I'm interested in business. I'd like to be a podiatrist. Whatever it is, I want to hear it. Open the conversation with me with some content. Now, you may also turn the tables on me and say, so now that I've decided that I'd like to do beekeeping, what can you do for me and how will I find a major at your school? So I don't mind if you ask me the challenging question on the other side, but come to me with something that you are interested in, maybe one thing. Your turn.
So I probably won't be limited by giving just one piece of advice. Here's a real important one, and it may have been stated, but I want to state it again. Students, one of the most common ways we will communicate with you, particularly once you apply to our institutions, is by email. Please be responsive. The quickness in that you respond to an email, written properly also, gives us an indication how interested you really are. And I can tell you there's a time not that long ago, a few years ago, where I had a student who would have been offered a full ride to Michigan State University as an out-of-state student if they had managed to respond to an email. They didn't. No scholarship. True. Completely true story. This is a process of discovery. Students, parents, you may discover more about your children, but for the students, this is a process of discovery. It starts now. It continues once you start in one of our institutions. Sometimes, even though you thought you were going to study fashion, you may decide you want to study mathematics when you get to college. It happens, dramatic changes. And that's because there's things, even though we do feel Staples is an excellent high school, you cannot be possibly exposed to all the academics that we have in our institutions, and you're changing as people as well. And then just to kind of hit again on something we talked about before, fit. Really, the goal of this process should not be a certain name of a school, but it's about finding a place that is an academic, a financial, and emotional fit. You're looking for those 3 fits. Students, you're going to spend 4 years at that school. Really take the time to investigate. Parents, I encourage you as much as possible, give your students the time to investigate. Probably no more than 1 school a day. Spend time in the town, walk around, talk to students, see how you feel. Because ultimately that time you spend on campus is going to go a long way to determining what is an emotional fit, certainly. And then spend time on the websites looking at the academics for the first thing you think you're majoring in, the second thing, the third thing, because it will change. Thanks.
I go back and forth because there are so many pearls of wisdom that we've sprinkled upon you, but hopefully you all are feeling a little bit more empowered and informed tonight. And I certainly want to just reiterate what I said in my opening statement, that perhaps you can turn this process around, have you be in the driver's seat and set the trends. It's so, easy to fall suspect to applying to the schools that have the names, or to think that a certain brand will bring you happiness. But we all know, and I think we've drilled down, and you can read about it ad nauseum, that that certainly won't be the situation. Oftentimes, too, when students at this time have their acceptances and rejections in hand, counselors may agree with this, but it's always amazing the students that might dwell on the rejections more than the acceptances, asking questions. How come I wasn't accepted? What did I do wrong? Was I not smart enough? Should have I applied early? Don't dwell on the rejections. Focus on the acceptances, because hopefully starting today, you will have done research that the schools that you apply, whatever the list may become, you would be very proud of. We were very lucky to have dinner tonight served by some of your peers. And I was so impressed, and I think all of us can agree, that when they introduced themselves, and half of them were seniors, and they said with a huge smile on their face where they were going to school, it was incredible the range of schools that your guidance counselors will introduce you to in this process, just through their knowledge and their assistance to help you develop that list. The range was from schools that weren't even in this country or on this coast. They ranged from the West Coast to Dublin. And they also specialized in cooking schools and schools that were tech schools. There are so many paths that you can take and so many opportunities that you have at your fingertips. That alone should make you feel already like a winner. And I would say that there's really no college, there's no single college that is paradise. It's really what you make of it once you get there, and the friendships that you develop, and the professors that you interact with, and the meaningful relations that you establish. Because if you're in a place where you feel empowered to make a difference, to go an extra mile, to study, go beyond the curriculum, to read an extra assignment or two, and to have that relationship, it will start all over again. Because actually, I hate to break it to you, if you do want to go on to graduate school or be a professional, pursue law, medicine, business, you're going to go through this again with grad school admissions. So take this lightly and actually just find a place that you will thrive, because it's ultimately a journey, not a sprint. It will be just one stepping stone for the rest of your life. And as your parents know, there's so many job changes that they might have already gone through or that are yet to come. Things are always unpredictable, and life, when you think you might have in the bag or that it might be a guaranteed happiness with XYZ results, not often the case. Just keep an open mind. That would be my advice.
So on behalf of the Staples Guidance Department, I just really want to thank all the panelists, and not only do we value the tremendous insight that you've shared and the candid perspective that you've been able to offer, but just the relationship and the trust that we've been able to build with you all has certainly been amazing. We're going to be visiting both sophomore and junior classrooms in the next couple of weeks. We're going to follow up on a lot of the themes that were discussed tonight and do some work with students and especially with the juniors in preparation for the summer, some things that can be tackled to head into next fall in a really prepared place. This week we have the great pleasure of meeting with all the seniors one-on-one to discuss what their plans are for next year, and some are heading off to college, some are going into the military, some are taking a gap year, doing one of any number of things. Each year we have about 170 different colleges that students go off to, which is wonderful to see. We also have the seniors fill out a survey, and one of the questions is, what's one piece of advice that you would want to share with next year's seniors? You're going to hear, this is exactly in line with everything that's been mentioned tonight. This is a senior who's graduating, not an admission professional. Make sure to keep everything in perspective. In a couple years, the difference between an A+ and an A in your AP Calculus class will not matter at all. It will matter more how satisfied you are with your educational experience and whether you feel you have sought out challenges, strengthened your abilities, and discovered areas of interest. When it comes down to it, even very bright students can be rejected from schools. Just because your GPA and standardized test scores are in the right range doesn't ensure you'll get in. However, there are so many to receive an enriching education from, and the schools that do accept you are the schools where you're most likely to succeed. One of the major themes, I would say probably at least half to 3/4 of the responses to that question were similar along those lines. Things have a way of working out. So thank you all for coming. There is an evaluation form that you would have received. If you could just fill that out, there's also a URL where if it's easier to complete that online, you could do that. Just leave it on the table outside. Thank you very much for coming, and look forward to seeing you soon.